Welcome to TT-Buddhism, a channel dedicated to sharing the deep wisdom of the Buddha in a way that is simple, clear, and practical. If you're looking for peace of mind, freedom from stress, and a deeper understanding of life, you're in the right place. In this video, we will explore one of the most powerful and transformative teachings of Buddhism, the concept of emptiness. At first, the word emptiness might sound confusing or even negative. People often associate it with loneliness or a lack of meaning. But in Buddhism, emptiness doesn't mean nothingness. In fact, it points to something incredibly liberating. The Buddha discovered that nothing in life exists by itself. Everything, our thoughts, emotions, relationships, and even our sense of self, is the result of many conditions coming together. When those conditions change, things change. This means that no experience, no object, and no person has a fixed, permanent identity. This insight is what Buddhism calls emptiness, the understanding that all things are temporary, interdependent, and without a solid core. In this video, we'll look at how the Buddha himself described this concept through two important discourses found in the early scriptures. More importantly, we'll explore how this understanding can be applied in our daily lives to reduce suffering, calm the mind, and open the heart. So take a deep breath, relax, and join us on this journey to discover the true meaning of emptiness. Not as a scary idea, but as a path to inner peace and freedom. What is emptiness? To truly understand emptiness, we need to shift our perspective. Emptiness in Buddhism does not mean that things don't exist. It means that they don't exist in the way we usually think they do. Most of us go through life believing that people, objects, emotions, and even our own identity have a solid, fixed nature. We might think, I am this kind of person, or this object belongs to me, or this situation will always make me happy or sad. But the Buddha taught that this way of thinking is an illusion, and it's the root cause of our suffering. In reality, everything we experience is made up of causes and conditions. A flower blooms because of sunlight, water, soil, and time. Without even one of those, the flower could not exist. The same is true for your thoughts, your emotions, your relationships, and even your body. Everything is in a constant state of change. There is no permanent, independent thing that exists on its own. This is what the Buddha meant by emptiness. Understanding emptiness doesn't make life meaningless. It makes it more precious. When we see that things are temporary and interdependent, we stop clinging. We begin to let go of the need to control everything. We respond to life with more wisdom, patience, and compassion. Most importantly, we begin to understand that suffering arises not from what happens, but from how we relate to it. By realizing emptiness, we stop reacting with attachment and aversion. We start living with greater clarity and inner peace. In the Buddha's own words, this insight is not just for monks or scholars. It's for anyone who wants to end suffering and live freely. And to understand this more deeply, we'll now explore two of the most important discourses where the Buddha spoke about emptiness directly. The Lesser Discourse on Emptiness. Let's begin with the first, the Lesser Discourse on Emptiness. The Lesser Discourse on Emptiness. The first discourse we'll explore is known as the Lesser Discourse on Emptiness, where the Buddha teaches how one can live and meditate in a state of emptiness. The story begins with a monk approaching the Buddha and asking for guidance on the meaning of emptiness. The Buddha responds by explaining that a practitioner should always reflect on what is absent and what is present as present. This may sound simple, but it is a profound method for training the mind in awareness and detachment. For example, when a monk is meditating in a monastery and there are no crowds, animals, or gold and silver, he reflects that these things are not present. But if the monastic community is present, he acknowledges that presence. He is not lost in thoughts about what should be or what is missing, but instead remains fully aware of what is right here and now. As his practice deepens, the monk moves to more secluded environments, a forest, a quiet place, or even deeper levels of meditation. In each stage, he continues this reflection. This is not here, and that's okay. This is here, and I recognize it. By doing so, his mind becomes more stable, calm, and free from mental disturbances. The Buddha describes how the monk moves through increasingly subtle states of awareness, from focusing on the wilderness, to the perception of vast space, to pure consciousness, and eventually to nothingness. At each level, the monk discerns what is absent and what remains. He does not cling to any experience, no matter how elevated or peaceful. Eventually, the monk reaches a point where he realizes that the deepest cause of suffering, the defilements of desire, attachment, and ignorance, are no longer present. He sees clearly that only the physical body, made up of the 6 senses, remains. But even that does not disturb his peace. He is free. This, the Buddha says, is the pure and undistorted practice of emptiness, a gradual peeling away of illusions until only clear seeing remains. The Greater Discourse on Emptiness. After understanding how a monk reflects on presence and absence in meditation through the Lesser Discourse, we now turn to the Greater Discourse on Emptiness, a deeper and more comprehensive teaching from the Buddha. In this discourse, the Buddha highlights the importance of living in solitude, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. He observes that a monk who constantly seeks company, enjoys conversations, and gets involved in group gatherings will not progress on the path. Why? Because such a person becomes easily distracted, caught in attachments, and lacks the quiet space necessary for inner clarity. The Buddha shares how even when surrounded by monks, lay people, and rulers, he still remains inwardly detached. His heart inclines toward peace, simplicity, and freedom from worldly entanglements. This is called dwelling in internal emptiness, a mind that is empty of craving, pride, and mental agitation, even in the presence of others. To live this way, the Buddha says, one must first purify the mind through deep meditation, especially the 4 stages of mental concentration. Once the mind is calm and unified, the practitioner begins to dwell in internal emptiness, external emptiness, and eventually both at the same time. But the teaching goes even further. The Buddha instructs that in all daily activities, walking, sitting, speaking, or thinking, one must remain alert and avoid falling into desire, anger, or harmful thoughts. Speech should be mindful and purposeful, focused only on what leads to awakening. Thought should be rooted in compassion, non-harm, and detachment. Furthermore, the practitioner must reflect deeply on the 5 sense pleasures, sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and touches, and train the mind to let go of attachment to them. The same applies to the 5 aggregates: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. These should be observed with awareness of their arising and passing, and without identifying with them as me or mine. The Greater Discourse is a powerful reminder that emptiness is not something we escape to, it's something we live within, with mindfulness, detachment, and clarity. It's a way of walking through the world with a heart that is free. Applying emptiness to daily life. Now that we've explored the Buddha's profound teachings on emptiness through the two discourses, the question becomes, how can we apply this wisdom in our everyday lives? Emptiness is not just for monks in the forest or meditators in retreat. It is a living insight we can use every single day in how we see ourselves, how we relate to others, and how we deal with problems. Imagine you're criticized by someone at work or misunderstood by a friend. Normally, our instinct is to defend ourselves or feel hurt because we think there's a solid self being attacked. But when we remember the teaching on emptiness, we begin to see that there is no fixed identity being threatened, just changing thoughts, emotions, and conditions. That realization brings freedom. Or consider the pain of loss, whether it's the loss of a relationship, a job, or even your youth. These moments are deeply human, but suffering increases when we hold on to the idea that things should have stayed the same. Emptiness reminds us that all things are impermanent and interconnected, and when we accept this truth, we suffer less and live more fully in the present. Even in joyful moments, emptiness is a powerful companion. It teaches us to enjoy life without clinging, to love without attachment, and to let go when the time comes, gracefully and with peace. Practicing emptiness doesn't mean being cold or indifferent. It means seeing clearly. When we see that nothing is permanent, nothing is truly mine, we stop grasping and instead start living with greater compassion, patience, and understanding. You don't have to renounce the world to live this truth. You just have to pause, breathe, observe, and ask, what am I holding on to right now? That simple awareness is already a doorway to freedom. So the next time life gets overwhelming, remember, emptiness is not a void. It is a space of possibility, clarity, and release. When you stop clinging, you start living. As we come to the end of this journey through the teachings on emptiness, let us reflect on what we've truly learned. Emptiness is not about escaping life. It's about engaging with it more deeply, more wisely, and with an open heart. It helps us see that everything we experience, whether it's joy or sorrow, success or failure, praise or blame, is impermanent and not worth clinging to. When we truly understand this, our suffering begins to dissolve. Through the Buddha's own words in the Lesser and Greater Discourses on Emptiness, we see that emptiness is not a philosophical idea. It's a way of seeing the world clearly. It invites us to live without attachment, to observe without judgment, and to respond with compassion instead of reactivity. It teaches us how to let go, not as a sign of weakness, but as an act of wisdom. When we let go of what is not present and clearly acknowledge what is, we return to reality. And reality, seen without illusion, is peaceful. At TT-Buddhism, our mission is to make these ancient teachings come alive in today's world. We believe that everyone, whether you are new to Buddhism or have been practicing for years, can benefit from the clarity and freedom that emptiness brings. So wherever you are on your journey, remember, the path to freedom begins with understanding, and understanding begins with stillness. Take a moment each day to pause, to breathe, and to reflect. What am I clinging to right now? That simple question can open the door to a more peaceful life. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. We hope this video has offered you insight, calm, and inspiration on your path. If this teaching touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with others who may benefit. And most importantly, we'd love to hear from you. What did you learn from today's reflection on emptiness? Feel free to leave a comment below. Your thoughts help build a mindful and supportive community. May you walk in peace, live with clarity, and be free.